When people think of Zanzibar, they usually imagine perfect beaches. But the island is much more than that. History, people, and a very different rhythm of life. This trip started in Stone Town, continued through wildlife and the ocean, and ended in the north of the island in Nungwi. Stone Town feels intense from the first moment. Narrow streets, old buildings, carved wooden doors, and constant movement. Freddie Mercury was born here, and there's his museum as well. It's a place shaped by many cultures, and you can just feel that mix just by walking around. You can scroll in the narrow streets endlessly, have a bargain on local goods, and just enjoy the freedom. Life in Zanzibar moves at a different pace. You hear pole pole all the time, slowly, slowly. There is no rush here. When you order food at a restaurant, waiting an hour is completely normal, sometimes even for drinks. At first, it feels strange, but then you realize that this is part of the experience. In few days, you get used to it and let yourself living in a slower, more peaceful state. Hakuna matata, no worries, isn't just a phrase. It's a way of living. The food is always worth the wait, and if you want to fully experience Zanzibar and the Swahili people, you have to coexist with this rhythm, maybe even love it. I also visited a Maasai village on the mainland. It was an important experience, but not an easy one. The level of poverty is impossible to ignore. Their living conditions are very simple and sometimes hard to see. At the same time, they were open, proud of their traditions, and willing to share their way of life. They mostly live in poverty with multiple wives, but at the same time, they are happy and trying to make the best out of what they have today. Travel isn't only about beautiful places. Sometimes it's about seeing realities very different from our own. Serval Wildlife was one of the most unexpected parts of this trip. Here, you're not just observing animals from a distance. I fed giraffes, stood right next to zebras, and even petted elands, a type of antelope. Being so close to giraffes felt unbelievable. It was a dream come true. I always liked them seeing from afar and had always wanted to stand beside them one day. They're calm, curious, and much bigger than you imagine. There was also a lion, asleep, fortunately. That moment alone made my trip. It's one of those experiences that stays with you long after you leave. One of the most fascinating places was Nakupenda, which means I love you in Swahili. It's a sandbank that appears and disappears depending on the tide. At low tide, it feels like a small island in the middle of the ocean. A few hours later, the water slowly comes back and covers everything. Here, the shore is never permanent. It changes throughout the day. There are few-hour trips by boat, guided by the locals. They bring food and seafood for the barbecue they make on the island. You can swim, take pictures, and then enjoy the food. When the time comes, you'll see every group tidying up the area they camped for several hours. Sea starting to cover the sandbank, and people getting ready to leave the island. It's a beautiful and peaceful chaos. A short boat trip from Nakupenda took me to Prison Island. Despite the name, it was never actually used to imprison criminals. It served as a quarantine station. Today, the island is famous for its inhabitants, the giant alligator tortoises. Some of them are over 150 years old. Seeing these ancient creatures moving so slowly, steadily, is the ultimate example of the pole pole lifestyle. It's an experience that makes you feel small in the presence of a living piece of history. You can't visit Zanzibar without understanding why it's called the Spice Island. I took a short tour of the plantations, and it was a sensory explosion in the best possible way. Seeing how cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon grow in their natural state was fascinating. Everything has a fresh, vibrant, and intense aroma. This makes you appreciate the flavors of the local cuisine so much more. In the north of the island, there's Nungwi, which has very different atmosphere. The beaches are wider, the water stays visible even when the tide changes, and everything feels calmer. Even though when I walked on the beach in the mornings, I could never return by the same path. It was all covered by water. What stood out everywhere were the people. Kind, welcoming, and genuinely warm. Even with very little, people smile easily and are always ready to help. Zanzibar is not just a beach destination. It's history, culture, kindness, and contrast, all on one island. And even if traveling here isn't possible for everyone, learning about another way of living still matters. Pole pole, hakuna matata. This was Zanzibar.